Season, so it is time for some opening statements. Louis Riddick, I turn to you first. What's your opening statement before the season begins?
Look, Jordan Love, the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, is a legit MVP candidate. Think about this last year. He was third in total QBR, fifth in completion percentage over expected. The last time we saw him on the field in the wild card against the Chicago Bears, he threw for 323 yards and 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He did not lose that game. QB wins is not a quarterback stat. He did everything he could to help that football team. This year, last week, against the Denver Broncos, in the preseason, he was 5 of 7, damn near perfect. This guy's on fire. I'm telling you, he's going to be in the MVP discussion at the end of the year, no doubt.
They are the best team in the NFC North. He is an MVP candidate. Yep. And when Micah Parsons comes back, look out.
Wow, I completely agree with everything you both said, except I do have the Lions in NFC North. The best thing about Jordan Love, last year he was the best third and long quarterback in the entire NFL. That means his passes are perfect. That's what that means. And I think you're going to see that. I talked to Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love a couple weeks ago at Packers training camp. They talked about how smart he's getting with the protections, get him in the right look. I love everything about that offense.
Just makes it look so easy, man, and it's natural to him.
As a thrower of the football, he's as good as it gets. They're going to be without Micah Parsons to start the year, so they'll need that offense. Kevin Clark, give me an opening statement.
I've been going back and forth on the NFC East for a couple weeks now. The final answer is in. The Cowboys will make the playoffs, but the Eagles still win the NFC East. This Cowboys team, to me, is so good. They would win a bunch of other divisions in the NFL. Their offense is going to be at worst top 5. Their defense, Quinnen Williams, Caleb Downs, I like them getting to at least average and winning double-digit games, guys.
I have it flipped. I have the Cowboys winning the division. I actually think the Eagles have more questions right now than the Cowboys. Two excellent teams, but I think Dallas wins this division with a revamped defense.
Hey, look, you know what? We've talked about Caleb Downs all the time when we're just talking about who's going to be the focal point of this revamped defense. Remember the name. We'll talk about him later on. Jayshon Barham, their draft pick from Michigan. He, to me, outside of Caleb, maybe even more so than Caleb, I'm just going to say this, may be the most consequential draft pick that they've made this year. This guy could be the best linebacker they have had there since Sean Lee, back in the early 2000s. This guy is that good. Trust me when I say this. Just watch his tape from last week.
It's going to be a very interesting division race. Remember, they open with division games. Cowboys and Giants will play on that Sunday night Week 1 opener. Mike T, give us an opening statement.
Greeny, the Cleveland Browns got the quarterback decision completely wrong. I had a sign up in our building, "In God We Trust." For everyone else, we need data. Show me the data that over 6 years, you've played in 19 games, been suspended 11, had shoulder surgery, tore your Achilles tendon twice, and then 6 years later came back and played 17 games at a high level. Shedeur Sanders, to me, has really compelling upside. I know it hasn't been perfect. Most young quarterbacks are a little bit bumpy, but he has real upside. Where are we going with free agent to be Deshaun Watson?
What did you think of it?
You know what? Honestly, at this point, I just don't even care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter anymore. And look, we know. Look, I am a believer in Shedeur Sanders. I'm a believer in the way he's been brought up in the game of football, and I believe, given a fair and equitable shot, I do believe that he is someone who has starting potential. The Browns don't believe that, though. They have already delivered that message. They don't believe it. And we know that Deshaun is not the long-term answer. So to me, it doesn't really matter. There's just going to be nothing but apathy just flowing through the streets of Cleveland this year because they've already turned the page to 2027. That's just the fact, and that sucks for them. It really does. I've heard people talk on the show about the fact that the Browns fans shouldn't go there. They should be ticked off. And you know what? As someone who played there for 3 years, when we had some pretty darn good football teams, but we didn't have a quarterback, I understand just how that frustration can roll, and they should be frustrated right now.
I'm with you, Louis. I mean, you go to training camp, and the stands are packed every single year in Brea, Ohio. It is a special place. To say they shouldn't go to games is easier said than done. They love football there. They can't live without it. But I'm with you, Mike. They got this wrong. Shedeur Sanders is the future of this team for this year. Next year, maybe it's Arch Manning, C.J. Carr, Derry Mensah, whomever. But I just don't know what hope you're selling with Deshaun Watson right now. He's in the last year of an albatross contract. It's a disaster. Turn the page.
I had it suggested here that because they open with 2 road games, maybe you're putting him out there to play those 2. If he surprises everyone and plays well, then you keep going. If he plays badly, maybe you make the change even that quickly.
Possible. I don't love that argument. I understand it, and you're going out against two really good teams in the Jaguars and the Bucs who have pass rushers who can hit you pretty good. But Shedeur Sanders is not a rookie. He's played. So I don't have that fear.
Greeny, there's another interesting dynamic. Todd Monken's waited his whole life to be an NFL head coach. He needs to be established.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's one and done, but if I'm Todd Monken, I got to win games early and establish my program and my credibility.
Look, it's really this simple to me. He clearly just doesn't believe in Shedeur and his ability to go ahead and help him do just that.
Yeah.
And I've said this here on this show numerous different times. This should have been a true quarterback competition. Play the guy that gives you the best chance to win games. If Todd thought that Shedeur gave him the best chance to win games, he should be starting, but he doesn't believe that. And if he doesn't believe it at this point, especially considering what the draft capital they have in 2027, look, they've already turned the page on this. They just have, and I hate that for Shedeur. I hate it for Cleveland Brown fans. I don't feel bad for Deshaun Watson. I don't feel sorry for him. He's made his own situation what it is. This is already moving on to 2027, and that's just very unfortunate.
It's depressing because that is a lifetime away in football terms. Or the NFL, NBA, or WNBA draft and did not withdraw, or signed a contract with an NFL, NBA, G League, or WNBA team, or been listed on an NFL, NBA, G League, or WNBA roster. There is, as you can imagine, an enormous amount to unpack here, and we've got all the right people to do the unpacking. Again, Mike Tannenbaum with his legal background, and Lewis obviously covering the college and pro game. Paul Feinbaum, who was never short on opinions. But let's start with Pete Thamel, who has been covering this more closely than anyone for us. Pete, just empty the notebook for us here. What do all the people watching this morning need to know about what happened yesterday?
Well, Greeny, yesterday what happened is the Big Ten and SEC passed a rule that should be fairly obvious to everyone, right? They said you cannot go to the NFL and then return. Now, there had been embers of this happening at different places, but Daquan Wright, and the image of him playing for the Cleveland Browns, getting waived and coming back, sort of triggered this reaction, especially at really the presidential level, Greeny, where people said, wait a minute, we can't have NFL players coming back to college. So those rules were passed, but this story is far from over, Greeny. Right now, LSU has 3 such players that were involved in a local state court ruling, which the lawyers will tell you should technically still make them eligible to play. State law obviously trumps conference law. That's Daquan Wright. You mentioned Xavier Harris, a very good defensive tackle. He had 10 tackles against Georgia last year in the college football playoff for Ole Miss. And then a Notre Dame edge rusher, Junior Tuihalemaka, who actually did not ever sign a pro contract, so his situation may be a little different. It's my understanding, Greeny, all 3 of these players are in Baton Rouge, and they are expected to push through the legal process to play. They're expected to likely start practicing with LSU at some point this week. This is not going to be a stand-down situation. The lawyers for these players made very clear last night that they continue to push forward against the SEC, and it creates a fascinating showdown between LSU and the SEC right now. It was a 16-0 vote, but I was told the LSU vote, Greeny, was very sheepish.
Well, that's the part of this that I think most people are confused by, because it seems like LSU has now set up a fight against, among others, itself, where Lane Kiffin is on one side, Pete, and the university voted the other way. So how should we be interpreting that?
We should be interpreting that by virtually every conference vote in the history of conference votes, Greeny, has been a unanimous vote. So I think there was some peer pressure in the room to do that. Monday, they had to pre-Zoom the SEC presidents before the actual meeting. That's just how hot burner this topic was. And in that, LSU President Wade Rouse made very clear where LSU stood, and they plan to push forward for the eligibility of these players. And again, we had the Charles Bediako situation in Alabama basketball in February. And the one thing that was very clear from calling the SEC and the NCAA during that case was, if a state court makes this law, you cannot trump it. Now, there's ways we saw in the Big 12, and we can get into this later with Mike T and everybody, where you can go above the state court and perhaps give yourself the authority to enforce your own rules. But what the Bediako situation taught us was it was 15-1 in the room against Alabama. No one thought Charles Bediako should be eligible. He'd gone, he'd played in the G League, etc. But state court said it, so he played, and then until he didn't, because it was reversed. But there's just been enough of these situations, Greeny, where it's going to be fascinating to see how this one unfolds.
All right, and one of the many things that makes this fascinating is the presence of Lane Kiffin, who is already maybe the hottest hot-button coach in the entire country. Paul, pick up the story from there. I'm dying to hear your first blush takes on all of this and the coach.
Well, Greeny, the most complex thing is what Pete alluded to, the president at LSU. Now, the president was hired by the governor of the state. I'm not going too deep into the weeds, but give me 1 second. The governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, has hired all of these people. Jeff Landry, following in the footsteps of the great Huey Long from the 30s, they called him the Kingfish because he ran the state and it was his football team at LSU. And this is Jeff Landry's football team. So I wanted to be a fly on the wall